Well, Razorback fans, we know that it's going to be an interesting week for the Razorbacks to try to bounce back after the Oklahoma State loss. But what can we actually expect to see against UAB this weekend in Fayetteville? We'll talk about it on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Neighbors, and this is a very special edition of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast because basically moving forward until we say otherwise or unless people get tired of us, we're going to be making this a THV Tuesday or a THV 11 Tuesday. It's a working title, but either way, it's going to be on Tuesdays. It's going to be with our partners of the lovely company of Tegna down there in the Central Arkansas area of THV 11. And joining us to talk more about it and the Razorbacks, of course, is the sports director down there at THV 11. A lot of you in the Northwest Arkansas area may remember him. It's Tyler Cass. And Tyler, appreciate you joining us. There's a lot of T's in this THV and Tuesday and Tyler and all that, but it's going to be fun to talk with you each and every week right here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
Oh, yeah, happy to do it. Yeah, I was just thinking that too. There's alliteration no matter which way we cut it. So whatever we decide going forward, it'll be a lot of T's. And yeah, like you said, I worked at Channel 5 up in Fayetteville. They're still our partners up there for 5 years before moving to Little Rock. So, hey, Northwest Arkansas, I love the whole state. Why not?
Yeah, you're covering all the bases down there, man. And I know when we talked a couple of weeks ago, I guess, when I was down there for the UAPB game in Little Rock, and that one went pretty well, but not so much against Oklahoma State this past weekend. And that's been the topic for everyone's conversation. So before we move on to the UAB side of things, just getting your thoughts on what maybe you can make sense out of that game that Arkansas had against Oklahoma State, because I sure can't, and I'm about tired of talking about and trying to make sense out of it.
Yeah, I mean, because like we've discussed, like you've said on air, like I said on air on our post-game show on Saturday, it's something that we've had to try and make sense of for years now, this kind of inability to win football games. And I think you watch that game, yeah, clearly they're a better team, they're a more talented team, but we haven't seen them be any better at winning football games. And as much coach speak as it sounds like to say, you got to learn to win, but they clearly haven't done that. I mean, winners win and losers lose. And right now we haven't seen any proof that they're a winner, that they know how to act when they have a lead, to close out games. I mean, look, I think you'd be upset if they lost this game no matter what, because, you want to win every game. But going into it, maybe not everyone was picking them. We did our little pregame show. You picked them. I didn't in my season preview. I think people were split. But as you said, it's the way it happened. It's less anger from me, I think, and more frustration. Like, I'm not mad. I'm just frustrated, which is the worst thing to hear. So, yeah, you want to move forward. You want to take away positives from it. But I don't think anyone's going to be feeling good until they actually see a win against a good team.
Yeah, my favorite thing is seeing a team that has 650 offensive yards and scores 31 points. I mean, that's hard to do. But Arkansas
second most yards in an Arkansas loss ever. And the other one was that Ole Miss game where at least they scored, 51 points, I think. It came a 2-point conversion short. So, yeah. No.
Yeah. That's, again, Arkansas is notorious for that, it seems like. But they have to turn the page. There's still 10 regular season games left. And they have a game, their very first game in Fayetteville against UAB this weekend. It's 3:15. So, interesting time, but still, it'll be interesting to see what the crowd looks like and everything. But now kind of turning that page, what's the expectation? I think everyone's expecting Arkansas to win. UAB struggled already. They have a loss on the season, didn't look too good this past weekend. But as far as an expectation of what you want to see in this game, I mean, what kind of should this expectation be for not only you, but for the fans and for everybody that's hoping that Arkansas bounces back the right direction?
An easy win. I mean, that's the thing. They're not as bad as UAPB. Actually went in week one and beat up on a really bad Alcorn team. And then, the last weekend, they were actually going up against their old interim head coach who had done well at UAB as the interim. And then they didn't hire him. They went with Trent Dilfer instead. So maybe he and Louisiana Monroe had a bit of a bone to pick, but still and I watched a little bit of highlights just before this, and UAB is not a good football team. The offensive line especially is really bad. So it is a get right game in every sense of it, but there shouldn't be a phase where Arkansas struggles. And I think that was the thing going into the UAPB game. It was, okay, Arkansas is going to win this game, but we saw last year against Western Carolina, they won, but man, the offensive line looked bad. They couldn't get any push. And it was like, okay, this is a bad sign going forward. Against UAPB, they won, and you didn't see a lot of those. And that's what UAB needs to be, to me, is nothing like, yeah, they're going to win. I mean, don't look, if they lose, then throw everything out the window. It's just, burn it all down. But winning easily in every facet of the game, that this should not be something where they struggle. And like you said, first game in Fayetteville, it's an afternoon game. It's family weekend. There's time to tailgate. Like, I don't think that one loss to Oklahoma State, as maddening and frustrating as it was, has sucked the air out of this thing just yet. So it should be a good crowd. It should be an easy win.
Yeah, it's always a should be is the keyest of words there for Arkansas. It's always should be easy. It should be a win, but nothing comes easy these days but for Arkansas. But again, having 10 games in front of them, they can change a lot of things, and a lot of things can go in their favor, and they get back on in the right direction. We'll talk about some of the players specifically that we need to see more from here in just a second. But we're going to, of course, take a little quick break and tell you more about some of the great things happening in Locked On. So stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, Razorback fans, I know a lot of you out there are always hyped up and excited about college football. Maybe not for your team right now, but maybe you think you could do a better job of coaching it. Well, luckily for you, there's an app, and there's a great game for that. It's called the Ultimate College Football HC. And an amazing game and simulation. You get to step into the shoes of the actual head coach of your favorite team, which, of course, is the Razorbacks. I mean, if you're the Razorback head coach and you're already tired of Sam Pittman and you hate him, well, don't worry. You have a game now where you can become the coach and make better decisions. But from recruiting players to hiring coaching staff to overseeing training camps and handling school scholarships, you control every crucial detail of the program. It's all in your hands. Will you be able to handle the pressure? That's going to be the ultimate question. And here's what I really love about the game. You're responsible for calling offensive plays during the games. Your strategy will not only determine the success of your football season, but it will shape the future and the legacy of your program. Ultimate College Football HC is completely free with no ads and is 100% playable offline, so you can play on the go as you want, when you want to. And of course, we have a special offer for all you Razorback fans. Use the promo code LOCKEDONCFB, all caps, inside the game store and receive a free boost to your program. And make sure you take advantage of this perk, as it will get your team off to a strong start. To download the game, just visit ultimate-cfb.com or look it up on the app stores. It's the Ultimate College Football HC. Begin your coaching legacy today. All right, continuing on with our special edition here on the Locked On Razorbacks, THV 11 Tuesday with Tyler Cass, sports director of THV 11. So, Tyler, we talked kind of in general about the game against UAB, or kind of what to look forward to, but it's also indicative of after UAB. We don't want to look ahead, but SEC play starts up. And there are some winnable games, I'd say, for Arkansas, because there's some opponents on the schedule that haven't looked too good in the SEC, Auburn being one of them. But before we really dive into those teams and whatnot, the players, we've seen some things from some players that are new, some veterans, but there's also some players that maybe we need to see more out of. Who would you say that heading into SEC play would make you feel a lot more comfortable, or fans comfortable, seeing this particular player step up and, at least make some plays and give people that, like, hey, we can count on this guy going forward?
Is it cheating to say a position group? Because I think really what I want to see more from is the other half of the DB room. I think we know who the top guys are at this point, and hopefully Hudson Clark can come back and be okay. And this is where UAB is a perfect game to test out kind of the depth, I think, before SEC play, because I think both DBs and offensive line were the two big ones who down the stretch either were hurt or just gassed, and you just saw as the Oklahoma State game went on just kind of decline as far as how effective both groups were being. And I think some of that is the coaching staff doesn't seem to trust a lot of guys right now, which is not a great place to be this early in the season. This should be where, guys have earned trust throughout the fall, and then, hopefully don't lose it. But if they do lose it, it's during actual games. They're being real stingy with minutes in both of those. And I know injuries to both have kind of impacted things. I mean, it's been nice for us, to see Marion Harris step in on the offensive line for Patrick Kudus, and he was obviously great in Little Rock at Joe T. Robinson. But if you don't know it when Kudus is coming back, you want to see other guys playing the line. And then, again, with TJ Metcalf is obviously taking a huge step forward this year. Hudson Clark, up and down throughout his career, but clearly a guy back there for the last couple of years who, again, hopefully he's hurt, or no, hopefully he's healthy. But it's the rest of those guys in both units who I want to see, because SEC play is going to be a lot more Oklahoma State and a lot less UAB and UAPB. So you need both of those units to have guys who you can bring in the fourth quarter once the starters are gassed and not see such a drastic drop like we saw against Oklahoma State.
Yeah, that was. I think that was probably the most disappointing thing was to see. We knew that this team was going to not be good enough to overcome depth issues, but it really shined itself against Oklahoma State, where you had always just love calling him Cuddy, even though it's Marquise Robinson, but that's his nickname, Cuddy. Sam Pittman said in his press conference that he did something in pregame that made him out for the game against Oklahoma State. And then Hudson Clark, you mentioned, not saying that those two guys being out is the reason they lost to Oklahoma State, but it's a lot harder to overcome it when, two guys that you want to count on in the secondary go down. So there's a lot of players that they're having to continue to count on. But one of the players that I'm not going to say that I need to see more out of him because I think we've seen plenty, but maybe part of his game. Jaquin Jackson's an incredible running back. I've been high on him for a while. He looks really good. He's strong. He's physical. But what I want to see is him holding on to the dadgum ball. Like, that's the thing. He's like, you can be the most physical running back. You can be so talented. You can, just bust over people and stuff. But fumbling has been an issue for him. Even against UAPB, the first play from scrimmage, he fumbled. Luckily, Arkansas recovered it. And then, against Oklahoma State, we saw some plays where he fumbled it and lost some, but also fumbled it and was able to get it recovered. So to me, that's what I want to see more from, is seeing how great he is, but also just finding you can't. Turnovers were killer for Arkansas against Oklahoma State, and you can't be having one of your best players, if not your best offensive player, going out there and you not trusting him to hold on to the ball against SEC opponents, because they're going to make you pay for it every time.
Yeah, and two of those fumbles against Oklahoma State, it wasn't like, the defense came in and it was just a great placed hit and knocked it out. I mean, the unable to catch a pitch before you start running, I mean, that's straight up on him. And then the one that luckily got called back in the first half that would have been a huge loss, it kind of seemed like he was already going down and then just launched himself at the defender, which, you love the moxie, the chutzpah, but to throw a little bit of my, Los Angeles rabbinical upbringing there. But you don't love the unnecessary risk. You don't love seeing a guy who's already going down do something that's going to make him lose the football. So luckily, I think it's not a physical issue. It's more just, decision making. So, yeah, I mean, like you said, might be the best, most explosive offensive player this team has, but you can't score if you don't have the football.
That's right. And they got to hold on to the football. But we'll talk about a few things else when it comes to the Razorback football team moving forward. And we'll do that here in just a second. So stay with us here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, folks, I got to tell you about our friends over at 5 Hour Energy. Listen, we know that we all get to be tired, especially during the day when things are really tough on us. We're still recovering from a terrible Razorback football game. That can happen. Work's just not the same. You're trying to get some things done. Well, luckily for you, there's a thing called 5 Hour Energy that is pretty self-explanatory in what it does in its title. It gives you energy for 5 hours. And we're not talking about just regular old energy. We're talking about high-level energy that helps you get all those things you're done, whether it's the workouts you got, whether it's you're going to have a marathon of watching the NFL games on Sunday, whether it's trying to get some of those to-do things done on your list at home. It's going to have you taken care of, and it's going to have you all covered. It's 5 Hour Energy is the brand that hardworking people use when they've had a long day, and it's something they've trusted for over 20 years. And you always know where to find 5 Hour Energy shots. Try at the cash register near every convenience, drug, and grocery store nationwide. Stock on money-saving multi-packs to make sure you never run out of delicious, energizing 5 Hour Energy shots. And if you go to 5hourenergy.com, that's the number 5hourenergy.com, and get some 5 Hour Energy product today, you can use my promo code LOCKEDONCFB for 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with any other promotions. The code is not good for subscription orders either, but go to 5hourenergy.com today. That's 5hourenergy.com. All right, wrapping up with Tyler Cass, the sports director of THV 11 on a THV 11 Tuesday. So, Tyler, just a few minutes here, but assuming that Arkansas gets by UAB on the road against Auburn, like what's the confidence level in that game that Arkansas will actually go into that game and find a way not to be screwed by the officials this time around?
Yeah, I mean, it's a revenge game every year, it feels like, because something has always happened the year before. This year's no different, because I think last year was probably one of the two most embarrassing losses of the season for Arkansas, was that game against Auburn. The other one, probably Mississippi State, but the less said about that ever, the better. And very, very winnable. I mean, nothing against Cal, but losing against a Berkeley team that doesn't have Marshawn Lynch on it is not a lot to say. I mean, and you look at, I think it was 4 interceptions for Auburn in that game. Like, that just feels like a game where, especially with how the Oklahoma State game played out, Arkansas has to have. And yeah, we'll see. I mean, everything's see. I'd like to see Taylon Green making decisions a little bit quicker once we get in SEC play. I think that'll really help out. There's a lot of screaming at your TV moments against Oklahoma State that against a SEC linebacker core won't work as well, but he does that. I mean, Auburn, again, we said it. It's always should with Arkansas, but I think it's fair to say Arkansas should beat Auburn. They should be 3-1 in a couple of weeks here.
Yeah, the should is going to be the name of the game. I mean, it's going to be the word of the season, it seems like. Maybe the word of the program, but still got to get through UAB this weekend. Should be a great one. Again, that'll be in Fayetteville, first home game for the Razorbacks at 3:15. But appreciate each and every one of you listening in and watching in here to the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast, as well as check out all the great things that THV 11 have going on down there in Central Arkansas. You'll see Tyler's pretty face there each and every day when he's talking sports for him. You can also check out their great content at thv11.com, and we'll go from there. Appreciate everybody listening in. For Tyler Cass, I'm John Neighbors. Same sports shows,